Women are completely out of touch with reality, and you're right, ABC should wake up.
Joy Behar stunned viewers when she said Donald Trump's press secretary, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt, only secured her position because of her good looks.
We're breaking down the details of what happened, why her comments are making headlines, and what this means for the show's future right now. If you've been wondering what sparked this intense dispute, you're in the right place. Despite The View's propensity for stirring up controversy, the discussion went further than the presenters had anticipated.
House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Here is Whoopi Goldberg saying she only got the job due to wokeness. What?
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
No, Whoopi. Corinne Jean-Pierre got the job because of wokeness. You and your old mate Joy Behar may have your jobs because of wokeness, but do not smear a competent professional woman like Karoline Leavitt with your nonsense, and don't lie about this being her first job. We know what you're doing there.
The media immediately attacked Karoline Leavitt when she was named White House press secretary, casting doubt on her credentials and motivations. Critics could not undermine her political rise, no matter how hard they tried.
The abuse continued.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Instead of damaging her reputation, the criticism exposed more significant issues in political discourse, which made The View's hosts more defensive. The conversation took a sharp turn when veteran advocate for women's emancipation, Joy Behar, made a remark that raised serious questions about the continuity of her message.
Karoline Leavitt. The left pretends to be a champion of women until they find one who is a conservative. Once that happens, they love nothing more than tearing down women with the most petty and vacuous of insults. Leavitt appears to be a fierce operator, but she's also 27 and arguably quite glamorous. So of course, the kind and progressive voices at The View reacted to her appointment like this.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10.
Behar caused controversy right away when she said that Leavitt's success was due more to her looks than her work experience. This episode spurred discussions about media hypocrisy, especially in relation to how conservative women are portrayed. How can public officials promote equality while demeaning female professionals based on their personal traits?
Women are completely out of touch with reality, and you're right, ABC should wake up.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
The comment was bizarre, especially coming from Joy Behar, who is as woke as they come and positions herself as a champion of feminism. This online commentator said, "Disgusting Joy Behar of The View accuses Karoline Leavitt of being hired only because Donald Trump thought she was a 10. Karoline Leavitt actually comes with real job qualifications, unlike Biden's DEI hires, Joyless Behar." This commentator doubled down, saying Karoline Leavitt was only hired by Donald Trump because she's a 10. You know that what it is. Actually, she's quite capable, unlike the last press secretary who was only hired because she was a black lady.
Karoline questioned the selective nature of media narratives and responded without hesitation. This discussion was not only about The View, it reflected a broader interest in the political and media domains. The increasing uproar over Karoline Leavitt's appearance on The View was being addressed by media sources.
The sentiment that President Trump is a democracy, and if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie, and yes, you will take political like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Last week, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was a That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by...
The discussion sparked responses from commentators across several networks, and the debate extended into political circles. Meanwhile, Karoline did more than just respond to the criticism directed at her. She addressed broader media narratives. such as the ways in which ideological bias shapes political discourse. She made it clear that the political landscape is shifting and that those who rely on media-generated narratives to remain relevant may struggle to maintain their influence. According to Leavitt, the traditional media cycle has been fueled by manufactured controversies. But as public trust in media wanes, that era may be coming to an end. As she emphasized that policy and meaningful discussions are beginning to take priority over media-driven distractions, it became evident that a political shift is occurring. As the debate continued, Whoopi Goldberg attempted to change the subject by highlighting the role that wokeness has played in the development of civil rights. She asserted that being woke has been essential in creating opportunities, saying that without it, you wouldn't have that job. However, Leavitt challenged the comparison, casting doubt on whether modern political engagement truly resembles past civil rights movements. She emphasized that encouraging ideological uniformity contradicts the original objectives of inclusiveness and free communication. The use of modern political terminology, particularly in swaying public opinion, quickly became part of the issue. According to Karoline, discrediting opposing views for the sake of progress violates the core principles of free speech. Whoopi defended her stance by claiming that vigorous activism is required to alter culture. However, instead of silencing opponents, Karoline countered that lobbying should welcome all points of view. As viewers discussed opposing perspectives, social media erupted once again, and the tension inside the studio was apparent. And while the effects of this conversation are still being felt.
Can either get on board or they can prepare to lose another election just like they did on November.
One thing is certain. Regarding political discourse in the media, there is still much debate. The dispute heated up when Whoopi Goldberg shifted the focus from Karoline Leavitt's comments on media trust to a broader analysis of identity politics. Instead of addressing Karoline's concerns about the decline in media trust, Whoopi focused the conversation on past injustices. She insisted that wokeness played a role in breaking down barriers, asserting that Black people couldn't enroll in the colleges they wanted and that only certain women could. Leavitt, however, remained steadfast, questioning whether modern wokeness aligns with its original intent or if it has become a divisive strategy. Whoopi accused Leavitt of misinterpreting wokeness. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought for you to stand at that podium, Whoopi said. She emphasized that progress has allowed individuals like White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre to flourish. However, Karoline shot back, arguing that wokeness today is less about equality and more about ideological conformity. Whoopi's attempt to change the subject didn't work well, as the discussion quickly turned to more controversial topics, including alleged political threats and charges against Elon Musk. Karoline chastised the panel for making unfounded accusations and criticized conservatives for purported conspiracy theories. She highlighted how legacy media narratives have changed over time, often to suit shifting political goals. She reminded them that for years, members of the mainstream media have attacked, mocked, and misrepresented political figures, influencing public opinion without accepting accountability. Karoline emphasized that viewers are increasingly selecting independent sources over traditional media, and that millions of Americans no longer believe these stories at face value, since they have operated for decades without resistance. The View and other legacy media sources have often suppressed alternative viewpoints and shaped public opinion. This argument, however, marked a shift by demonstrating that media narratives are now being challenged in real time. Karoline Leavitt's fight for media accountability has led to legacy media outlets being held responsible for their reporting. Her direct approach has infuriated key members of the mainstream media, and despite her youth, she is upending the White House press pool. Her latest statement, the White House drastically changed its press briefings. Leavitt created a new media section to hold traditional media outlets accountable for their inaccurate facts and unfair coverage of President Trump. "We will challenge you if we think your reporting is false or misleading," she said. For many years, organizations like the Associated Press and the White House Correspondents Association controlled press access. Today, however, control is evolving. 2 front-row seats traditionally designated for White House staff will now be available to independent media voices willing to challenge the status quo. To add fuel to the fire, Leavitt restored press cards for 440 journalists whose credentials had been revoked under the Biden administration. The View panel's reaction was a little different. Despite the fact that many praise this attempt for increasing transparency instead of celebrating press freedom, the hosts criticized the change, asserting that the mainstream media should remain the most influential voice in the room. Sunny. Hostin ridiculed the idea that reporters from new media should be allowed to attend briefings, stating that only legacy media should have the authority to do so. According to Whoopi Goldberg, people may just say things without accepting responsibility for them if there is little media oversight. But critics pointed out the hypocrisy. For years, The View and other mainstream media have been accused of doing just that, limiting opposing viewpoints, swaying public opinion, and advancing certain narratives. With this shift in media representation, the debate over narrative control is just beginning. Furthermore, based on The View's reaction, not everyone is ready for this change. Now that media CEOs are being held accountable by Karoline Leavitt, The View wants to talk about journalistic ethics. Whoopi Goldberg attempted to redefine wokeness by conflating it with civil rights history rather than addressing how it is employed in modern discourse. Leavitt's original thesis on leadership based on merit versus identity-based selection was dropped. At its core, this debate is not about ethics or journalism, but about narrative control. For years, the mainstream media dominated public opinion. But as millions of Americans turn to alternative news sources, the elites of the conventional media are becoming concerned. Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in U.S. history, accused the mainstream media of undermining public trust. We are certain that a lot of traditional media outlets have propagated misleading information about this president and his family, she said. We will confront you if you report something that is misleading or inaccurate. This marked a shift and forced The View and other networks to confront their unchecked influence. For years, these presenters have spread narratives without challenge, but those days are ending. Leavitt's tough demeanor heralds a new era of media accountability, and her nomination is likened to that of her predecessor, Karine Jean-Pierre, who often emphasized her historic identity in the role. While representation is important, competency is more powerful than labels. Former Press Secretary Jen Psaki even called the repetitive messaging approach demeaning. However, The View continues to frame arguments around identity politics instead of engaging in substantive policy discussions. But that's not the game Leavitt is playing. Her focus remains on her task, and The View was not done attacking her. After failing to damage her with personal attacks, the panel attempted the classic gotcha moment, this time on illegal immigration. When asked about the 3,500 arrests ICE has made since Trump returned to office, she shifted the topic. The panel probed her to admit that Trump's policies were unfair to illegal immigrants. Instead, she informed them, breaking immigration laws is against the law. They all broke the law by entering illegally. Then their dispute broke down. Refusing to back down, the panel attempted to frame the issue as one of cultural shift rather than law enforcement. However, the reality remained. Prioritizing law-abiding citizens over unlawful visitors is not a recent trend. It is the enforcement of existing laws. For years, corporate media claimed to be advocates for justice. However, this discussion made it clear that their primary concern is advancing a political narrative. Karoline Leavitt is exposing the media's bias and forcing them to confront their own decline. As political priorities shift, media outlets must adapt or risk becoming obsolete. According to Leavitt, the president will continue to put Americans first, and the left can either accept this or prepare to lose another election. This is just the beginning of how rapidly media dominance is shifting. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.